green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good morning, Eagle Nation. Appreciate you streaming in here to Birds 365. We've got two pretty good hours planned for you. In the immortal words of Cody Rhodes, yes?
I like it.
Birds 365, what do you want to talk about? I think we've got a pretty good guess on what we're going to be talking about for the majority of the next 2 hours.
Cody Rhodes. Let's talk about Cody Rhodes.
We'll put Cody on the back shelf.
I'd rather.
We'll just use his phrase to get us into Birds 365. We're going to talk about another young star, and that would be Jalen Hurts. Of course, Johnny Mack and I wrap up Birds 365 yesterday, about an hour or so afterwards. I think I'm watching The Blacklist on the DVR, which I didn't get a chance to watch on Sunday night because I'm on the air. I'm catching up on some of my Sunday night TV viewing. And I get a text from John McMullen that Adam Schefter is reporting that the Philadelphia Eagles have extended Jalen Hurts at 5 years, $255 million, making him the average annual value highest paid player in the history of the National Football League. Not today, in the entire history of the National Football League. The deal gets done. Jalen will be here for years to come. Johnny Mack, what was the first thing you thought of when you heard the news?
Relief. I'm glad it's over. It was always when, not if, and when came earlier than even I expected. And the Eagles got it done. And I've been saying it for a while. Both sides the Eagles were going to be fair. They were going to be in that 48 to 52 range and ended up at 51. Jalen wasn't going to be Kirk Cousins or, trying to wring out every penny. He wasn't going to be Lamar Jackson saying, I need fully guaranteed Deshaun Watson money. It's just not his nature. That turned out to be the case. And they got it done, man. April 17th, very early in the process, and everybody's happy. And they should be happy because it's a good deal for both sides. And long term, it's going to look really good for the Eagles when you start seeing the salary cap going up. But we're going to have Brad Spielberger on in the second hour. It's a big salary cap guy. He'll be able to explain it really well. It's interesting though because the cap numbers are really small to the point where it's eye opening. For the first 4 years. And, a lot of people call it magic from Howie Roseman and Jake Rosenberg. It's just accounting, but it's interesting. They found a way to be ahead of the curve again. And I really give them credit because I was looking at, Daniel Jones's cap numbers. They're not even comparable players. And the Giants, the first 2 years are $21 million and $45 million for Daniel Jones. The cap numbers. Now, the Eagles had a little bit of an advantage because Jalen Hurts still had the mono year in his rookie deal. So his cap number was, I think, was going to be 4.7 this year. It's only going up to 6.15, Jody. 6.15, and next year 13.56, and then 2 years out 21.77, and even 3 years out 31.77. Again, you're going to have this incremental increase in the salary cap, about $20 million a year. You know, the percentage of what he gets paid is going to look really low in 4 years, and then you're going to have a redo of the deal. I give them credit. They are great accountants, and they have. You know, I thought they'd have a 2-year window to keep building this team. They got a 4-year window to keep building this team, which is pretty stinking impressive. And while I say that, you got to go build this team now because the quarterback helped you out. None of this, we're going to go with Nicholas Morrow nonsense. You got to go build this team now. Might be trade. Obviously, you got to hit and draft picks. We all understand that. That's evergreen in the NFL. Could be June 1st cuts. Could be anything. You got to go build this team now.
Agreed. They ratchet the pressure up on themselves, which is more of a good thing than a bad thing. But I got a question for you. What happened to June 1st? You had me sold that June 1st was this key transactional day, and it was more advantageous to wait till after June 1st than do it before June 1st. So I was buying what you were selling, and then you get the deal done in April. What the hell?
Well, they didn't need to wait till June 1st. Typically, you need to. And, you know, I probably put too much weight on Carson Wentz. And when they signed Carson Wentz, and I look back and I said, well, they're probably going to do what they did then. Because remember, at the time, I believe he was the highest paid player of all time at that point for a very short period.
And Jalen will be too. Jalen's going to be the highest paid player in the NFL
as soon as Justin Herbert goes, this is the floor now for Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and Joe of that is going to get the most of those three. But in hindsight, look, people, you know, they didn't need to wait till June 1st, so they didn't wait till June 1st, and you know, I probably put too much on, you know, maneuvering other contracts when they didn't have to maneuver other contracts because, you know, they're not getting extra money from cutting people. So they didn't need to, and they got it done early. Now, part of it is also, I thought, you know, Jalen might wait a little bit as well, you know, and there's no hurry, you know, despite some of the narratives of, it's got to get done. It didn't have to get done on April 17th from anybody's perspective. I went back and looked at Kyler Murray. I talked about those 2 windows. I talked about June 1st to June 10th. And if not that, the 10 days before training camp, that's when Kyler signed. But the Eagles are ahead of the curve on this kind of stuff. And they went first. They wanted to go first. That's something I hit on because going first is cheaper than going last. And they know that. Now, at the end of the day, it's all about the player. It's all about the evaluation of the player. If he fails on the field, it's not going to look good. But if he keeps playing like he played last season, people are going to be very, very happy with this deal very, very quickly.
Agreed. All right, well, we got 10 minutes here before we punch up Mikey Miss. I'm going to tick off all the Eagle fans here. For the next 4 years, it's a phenomenal deal. We talked prior to him actually getting it done and signing it. Will it be a player-friendly deal or will it be a team-friendly deal? Which way is this one going to cut? Well, right now, you got to say it's a player-friendly deal because he's the highest-paid player in the National Football League. You don't become the highest-paid player in your game and not think it's a player-friendly deal. It's not a team-friendly deal yet. Oh, it could be. It could become a team-friendly deal if Jalen Hurts stays at that MVP type level that he played at this year, for the salary cap hits they're going to have for the next 4 years, it's almost unfathomable the way they've structured this contract, how good this contract could be. But that's dependent on Jalen Hurts staying Jalen Hurts 2002 level. And the other thing that can make it a team-friendly deal is, as we just talked about, what happens with Burrow and what happens with Herbert. When they go above and beyond, and Jalen is the highest-paid quarterback, highest-paid player in the history of the National League for a couple of months, it just brings his contract back down into the team-friendly range. But we're not there yet. It's a Jalen-friendly deal now, which could become an Eagle-friendly deal. And where it could really go badly for the Philadelphia Eagles is, in the last 2 years of the deal, the cap number that the Eagles are looking at, it again, this is a projection. We got Brad Spielberger on. Let's see if he's got the same type numbers. I was using guys who are on his over the cap website, that the Eagles are scheduled as of now, if this plays out, to owe Jalen Hurts on the cap $81 million in the fourth year of his deal. That can't happen. You can't, even if the cap gets up to near $300 million, you can't have a player on the books for $81 million. You just can't. So you immediately think, well, they'll just renegotiate. They'll rip up the contract, they'll renegotiate. What happens if Jalen Hurts isn't the same player? What happens if Jalen Hurts, and this is highly unlikely, but you can't say it's impossible, decides, you know, I want to test that free agency thing. It was nice. I bought my family all homes and everything. Got a great deal from the Eagles. Had a great time. But I want to go try my wares somewhere else. What if he doesn't want to do a contract extension with the Eagles? The Eagles are screwed. They're like in a hole. We thought that the Carson Wentz hole that they couldn't jump out of. My partner, Johnny Mack, Andrew Brandt, a guy whose opinion I trust with almost anybody, finances and football, said, there's no way they'll do that. Oh, yeah, they jumped down into that hole, and they did. They took the dead cap hit. If that was a big hole, this is the Grand Canyon. You can't get out of this hole. 81 and change $1 million. So even if you say, well, no, they'll get a deal done. John, what player in the history of the National Football League has more leverage for the next contract negotiation than Jalen Hurts? Knowing full well that the Eagles have to redo his deal just to restructure it, to get an $81 million cap hit off the books, who's going to be in better leverage position than Jalen Hurts 3 years from now?
One, this is it's hard to explain. I wrote this on Sports Illustrated. Yeah, it is tough to explain when you have the largest contract from some metrics, not from some others, not for some other more important ones, to be honest, but largest contract from average annual value in NFL history. It's tough to explain to a fan that that's a team-friendly deal. It's a team-friendly deal. From the accounting perspective, which is what this is, like if you're Jeffrey Lurie and you're judging Jake Rosenberg and his job, because he's in charge of this stuff, I always say the Carson Wentz deal today was a good deal from his perspective, from his job description, from his perspective, what his job is, not from a football perspective, from his job, from an accounting perspective. It's still a great deal today. That's why he doesn't get any crap for the Carson Wentz deal. Now, the football people, they screwed that up. Carson screwed that up. Different conversation. This deal, and Brad, and I don't have the details of those final years yet. I don't think anybody does. If they did,
just speculating.
They got him this. Yeah, they got
over
him
the
this
cap
morning.
Speculating.
But those final 2 years on the extension are going to be massive cap numbers, which indicates that that's the crux. That's the point where the deal's going to get, something's going to be done with the deal. if you want to play the pessimistic aspect of it, if you go, you bring up Andrew and I a lot that offseason saying Jeffrey Lurie's not going to, what we said was Jeffrey Lurie's not going to be the guy who sets that precedent. That's what we both said. That's what we both believed. And that's where we were both wrong. You know, Jeffrey wasn't very popular for doing that. Now, luckily, Jimmy Haslam came along and blew him out of the water from pissing fellow owners off, and now it's kind of a footnote. But I forget what the number was. It was some outrageous number,
Carson?
like 30,
31 and change.
31, somewhere in that range. So remember, 31, whatever year that was, the cap right now is 224.8. I'd have to look back at what it was there. It's generally going to go up about 20 million a year. So if it goes to 244, 264, 284, 304, 324, by the fifth year, that would be 304 if it holds to where we think it's going to go. So that 30, what you did, can turn into, that's the new 80.
No, well, John, it's gone up about 40% from the year that Carson did it. So you add 40% to 30, and you're at about 48, 49.
No, you're right, but the cap is going up because of the new deal. It's going up further than it was. It's going up. It's going to go up. Projected again, barring a pandemic or a collapse, as I mentioned in the economy, which, you know, Jeffrey Lurie will be worried about bigger things, to be honest, than Jalen Hurts' contract as a billionaire. Other than societal collapse or as I said, another pandemic, and I think we've learned enough that we're not going to shut down the world for the next pandemic. Hopefully, it never happens, but I think we've learned enough that that's not going to happen. So, barring some kind of catastrophe, it's not apples to oranges is what I'm trying to say. Not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. But moving forward, how many times are we going to question Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts ain't that guy. Jalen Hurts ain't that guy. Now, things can go bad from a football perspective. He can get hurt. He cannot play well. He could not be at the point where you want to pay him that kind of money. All of that stuff can happen. As far as him being leverage, Mr. Leverage guy, it ain't going to happen. He's proven it here. He's proven it in his career. He's going to continue to prove it. He really wants to win. So that part I'm not concerned about. And so if you go back to the football stuff, which is the most important stuff, all right, here's the question. Here's the question I'll throw back at you, Jody. This is the cost of doing business at the quarterback position in the NFL. You have to pay him, or you don't pay him and you go in a different direction, or you go in a different direction with the player. So what's your best option? If you want to pay him, it becomes, what's your best option? What's your best vehicle to get him the going rate to do business at this particular position? From that perspective, the Eagles
paid him what they had to pay him. He earned the money. This is not an outrageous somebody stretching imagination that he becomes the highest paid quarterback. We've seen it happen enough times over the last several years. Well, the new guy's the new guy, and then see top of the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. And Jalen was the second best quarterback in the National Football League this year, and he was that much behind Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, he got paid what he was supposed to get paid. The Eagles paid him. He took what he was deserving. I got no issue with that. I am questioning the accounting, and that's why we're having Brad Spielberger on, because he can explain it better than I can. But what the Eagles have done here, in the way that I understand the cap is, you compared it to Daniel Jones and the way the Giants laid his money out, and the fact that he's going to count $45 million against the cap in his second year. Jalen Hurts is only going to be counting 30 in his fourth year of a new deal. Well, how the hell did something like that happen? The Eagles are laughing in the face.
Better account.
The Eagles are laughing in the face of the doomsday scenario. The Giants are spreading the cost out. They're going to take their hits as they go because, oh, by the way, they should, because Daniel Jones is a much less safe a bet as Jalen Hurts is. But they don't want to be left holding the bag if the worst case scenario happens. If, let's say, and again, I apologize in advance, Eagle fans, all the guys listening on the stream, I'm not predicting this. I'm not projecting this at all. But what happens if Jalen Hurts is Carson Wentz 2.0 and he gets hurt and he's not the same player he used to be? And we're 3 years into this deal, and the Eagles are looking at an $81 million dead cap hit when they want someone else to be their quarterback. They're killing themselves. That's what they're doing. They're saying, we want to cash these chips for the next 4 years. Johnny McMullen is right. We got a 4-year window to take down a Super Bowl, if not multiple Super Bowls. But if we don't, and Jalen gets hurt, and we're sitting in year 4 here, and he's the 21st ranked quarterback in the National Football League, we're screwed. And we know we're screwed, and we don't have a back door out. We have to take this massive, unbelievable, off the charts, never been even thought about in the National Football League hit again. That's my down. That's the only knock I have on the contract. They are taking the future risk and flushing it and saying, we don't care. We want to take advantage of these next 4 years. We're going to take our big time shot here in the next 4 years. Now, there's a very good chance that Jalen's going to stay right where he is, and they're going to be fine, and they can continue on, and we can talk about him on Birds in 2033. But there is the possibility of that downside risk. That's the only downside to this deal.
That's a Eagles. Football. That is the football guys. It's a collaborative organization. Jake Rosenberg got his information. They gave him his information. They got to be right. What I'm saying is he did his job. His job's over. Now the football people are on the clock. He did his job, correct, and he did his job well.
And more power to Jake Rosenberg. That's why he's going to stay employed. But now the football happens, and either his job will become that much better, or there is a doomsday scenario here that could really jump up and bite the Eagles in the butt. I'm not predicting it. I don't think it's going to happen. You need me to go on the record and say, I don't believe this is going to happen. I'll do that right now. But it is a possibility, a smaller percentages, that is. All right, we've been breaking down the Jalen Hurts contract plenty. We're going to do it with Mike Missinelli next. I reached out to Mike, said, hey, Mike, we haven't had you on since the Super Bowl. We need you on Birds 365. Little did I know that Jalen Hurts' contract was going to get signed. Thank you, Eagles, for making the Mike Missinelli appearance that much more important. He joins us next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, we got this. Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Mac guys here on Birds 365, McMullen and McDonald. We are joined by Mikey Miss, our host for the Eagle post-game show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Longtime Philadelphia football opinion guy. Mikey Miss, how you been? How's the winter/early spring treating you?
Good morning, guys. Now that the weather's gotten a little warmer, it's great. You finally get outside and can do some things. A little chilly today, but boy, isn't it good to be a quarterback.
Yeah, man.
And I'll tell you something else. It's good to be a quarterback's agent because McMullen just scraped $7.2 million.
Yeah, 3% of that bad boy.
Money, and it could be more for her. And I'll tell you right now, I'm lamenting my career choice, fellas.
I thought, well, I'm impressed you brought the sports jacket for us. So it looks like you just got $255 million.
Yeah, I was on a TV show earlier this morning talking about this as well on Fox. So this is the only reason, John.
Nice. I see. You should have told us. You should have lied and said, but you did it for us.
Oh, I dressed up for you guys.
Yeah, right.
What? All right. First thoughts. We'll say that. I mean, it's hard to explain.
I mean, really, they had no other choice to get this done. I mean, what were the choices? They let him play on that last year of a contract after a guy took him to the Super Bowl. They would have been hell to pay from contention, and maybe he wouldn't have played on the last year of a contract. And once Daniel Jones got $45 million, what were they going to do? It may have been the easiest negotiation ever for an agent, right? Let's start at $50 million, and we'll see what we can add, like a no trade clause or guaranteed money and all this kind of stuff. And he got it. And that's the price of being a quarterback. I heard you say it, John. The quarterback lives high these days. You can't hit the quarterback. Now they've got a special helmet they designed for the quarterback. And he makes $50 million plus if he's a premier guy. So, there's no choice. They didn't have a choice.
Mikey, you mentioned an aspect of the contract, the no trade clause. It's a really nice gesture by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's added to the mix for them to further say, man, we love this kid. We love everything about this kid. We want him to represent our franchise. Shoot, he could be a face of the league type guy, face of the NFL. But it really is pretty irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way they've structured this contract, they couldn't trade him if they wanted to.
Yeah, because nobody's going to take that heap. Probably, and if you're going to trade him, it means he will have not played well. So I don't know what his market value would be. You're right; it's probably a non-entity.
Yeah, I called it ceremonial. I think it's ceremonial.
The beauty of it, because she just could have added stuff. She decided to add a no trade clause, like she had him over a barrel. Now this cap thing, I thought I knew the cap, Jody. I heard you talk about that. I do not understand the Schefter numbers at all. On how that cap hit is so low.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
I don't get it. Somebody's going to have to really explain that to me. I know that a lot of it is probably backloaded, and they're anticipating that the salary cap's going to go up and up and up, and it's not. And a big cap hit in 4 years from now is not going to be that big of a deal because the cap's so high, and maybe they get a bargain on the price of the quarterback. But I just don't understand how those Schefter numbers would apply.
Yeah, and it is much lower than even I expected. I thought the first 2 years were going to be pretty low from expectations, but to get 4 years essentially where you can build a football team, I mean, the Eagles have been ahead of, you got to give them credit, Mike. They've been ahead of the curve on this kind of stuff. You know, other teams have sort of followed, and we saw it with Kyler Murray. He had sort of lower cap numbers for 2 years, and then you had the real big spike. And they found a way to finagle a little bit more, and we're going to have a cap guy on in hour 2. And even I'm interested to see how and his perception of what went on. But from the they're ahead of the curve generally when it comes to this stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. But like 21.77 million in the third year, and then just 31 in the fourth. I don't know how I'm confused to that. I really don't, unless this guaranteed money is somehow parceled in some kind of a signing bonus that's prorated. I don't get it. But listen, if these are the real numbers.
They got some voidable years on the back end.
They are.
Usual.
I think they're the real numbers, but I don't know if I explained it well enough, or if you want to accept. There's a doomsday scenario here. If he gets hurt, if he's not the quarterback that he was last year, at some point the Eagles are going to be looking at a worst case scenario of an $80 million dead cap hit. Yeah, that's where it gets that bad, Mike. They're eschewing that. They're laughing at that. They're turning their nose up at that. And they'll probably never have to pay that bill. But if they do, it could be outrageous for them.
See, they don't think in those kind of terms anymore, though, Jody.
You got to risk something.
They don't think of the doomsday scenario. They think of like their backs against the wall. This is what we have to do. It's almost like baseball when you give a 10-year contract. They're not thinking of that back end. They're going, okay, this is what it is now, and we'll worry about that later. And that's the mindset. And for a quarterback, it's the landscape has changed to the point where if you're a premier guy, what's Burrow going to get? Is Burrow going to get more than this?
Oh God, yeah. Burrow's gonna.
There's always going to be someone who comes along, is going to dazzle, and is going to be have that kind of worth. And at 51 mil AAV, we've got a bargain 4 years down the road. And they're not thinking of the hurt part of it. And the thing about Jalen is, like, when this contract expires, he's got another one coming to him if he plays this out right. I mean, it's amazing at age 29 or 30 that he can have another dazzling deal.
Yeah, I mean, and I compare it to the injury aspect of professional football. The biggest cliche in this industry, Mike, and I've heard it 10 million times at this point, is control what you can control. That's what they tell the players, control what you can control, blah, blah, blah. I always say you can't legislate injury, so what the hell are you going to worry about it? I mean, if he has a catastrophic injury, I mean, you're screwed. Same thing with that doomsday scenario from a financial standpoint. Yeah, if society collapses, the Eagles are screwed. They're not going to be able to pay but I think we're going to have bigger problems. So I can't worry about a doomsday scenario with the quarterback. This is the cost of doing business in the NFL at this particular position. The Bengals are going to have to go through it, the Chargers and everybody else.
Yeah, they're coming up surviving that very same scenario with wins.
Yeah.
Now, it was a lesser a hit, but at the time it was a major hit, and they went on the draft of the quarterback who turned out to be this guy. So their frame of reference is it's fine, it'll work out. No big deal.
Yeah, they had 1 year. You might take a hit for a year, and then you got to, like during the Carson Wentz aftermath. All right, you take a step back to take 2 forward. Yep. I think that's their perception.
That's surely the way they're going to look at it. And the other thing that you got to give the Eagle organization, entire organization, credit for, when a guy gets this kind of contract, either with social media being what it is now these days, and players, the Eagles have a bunch of players that are always taking stances, making statements on social media. Is there anyone who is not just stone cold elated for this young man to get paid? No, they all love this guy, and that tells you the kind of culture that they built around him in that Eagle locker room. Nobody could be happier for Jalen Rose than his teammates, right, Mikey Mess?
Yeah, there's no question about it. He's that type of stoic leader. It's funny because once they got to the Super Bowl, I wonder if they went, yeah, oh no. Because that's what it kicked in. The guy gets you to the Super Bowl. Now you go, all right, I got to give up the 50 mil. And they knew they had to do it. They did it. And you're right. This is not a flimsy situation where the kid hasn't been hurt really. He's sturdy. He's a strong kid. He does so many things on the field. It came out of nowhere, but it is what it is. So nobody's going to be disappointed. Right now, he's QB1, and QB1s at that level of play get that kind of cash.
All right, Jody pissed some people off, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to take some of the heat off Jody. This kid's been too good to be true. 24-year-old, so mature, natural leader. All of a sudden he gets $50 million in his pocket. Maybe, I don't want to show up at 6 a.m. Maybe I want to show up at 8 a.m, Mikey Miss. There's a human nature. I would say never practice hero worship, because you're always going to be disappointed in the end. Human beings are flawed. It doesn't matter if it's a celebrity, a politician, a sports star. I was a big Julius Erving guy. There were some, when I was young, there were some peccadillos there, off the floor. If you practice hero worship, you're going to be disappointed. When you get paid like this, anything like that could happen.
Listen, I guess you're right, but this guy is like a pod. He's like, when you saw Wentz, you saw some, there were some little signs, little flaws, this and that. This guy is different. This guy's a stoic, like he's a no fun, all business type of guy. I don't think I've ever seen an athlete like this.
How can you not have fun with $50 million though?
Well,
Mike?
it's true, but his idea of fun might be different than he's been coached so structurally that I don't see that happening where he's going to intentionally show up at 8 o'clock and get to this thing in him where he's bigger than life. It could happen, obviously, but again, you're powerless to, you can't anticipate that to not do the deal. Things are what they are sometimes in sports, John. This is the price of doing business for this particular position. And this guy is probably a safer bet than most. So if it does happen, what you're saying does happen, we did all our due diligence, and sometimes things don't work. It's up to the gods. But I think if you're analyzing it logically, there's less chance of that happening with this guy than some other guys.
I agree. Much safer bet. That's a good way to describe it.
For my fellow Star Trek fans out there, you could consider Jalen Hurts data. He's an android. I'm not sweating the whole, oh my God, look at all this money I got. I ain't get up for practice tomorrow. No, the android gets up at 6:01 every single day. Happens. And I think it's going to stay exactly the same with Jalen. I have no worries about this much. Injuries, that stuff happens. But the fact that he's going to get a little big for himself, I don't think there's any chance of that happening. All right, Mikey Miss. Before the Jalen Hurts contract came down, we wanted to have you on and talk about the draft. So here's where I'm going to go first with you. Bijan Robinson has been the guy who's been talked about. Two guys, Jalen Carter, Bijan Robinson, and the whole Jalen Carter thing comes down to, will he be available? One of it, will he go in the top 5 where he deserves to go? Would the Eagles be the team that finally takes him if a whole bunch of them pass on him? I want your comment on that, but Bijan more so. Does Jalen's deal yesterday change the way the Eagles look at drafting Bijan Robinson at number 10 at all?
I don't think so. I think that they think they can cover their butt with what they have at the running back position. I love the kid too, but at 10, I don't think there's any chance that they would take him because you know what they do. Here's the scenarios I look at. If Jalen Carter starts to slip, I think they may trade down to get him. If Nolan Smith lands on their lap at 10, I think they might be tempted to go there. But at 10, those guys, and that's probably not going to happen. So at 10, maybe they trade back and they take the corner, or they and with that pick, they either take the corner or they take Van Ness. The only thing I could see happen, of course, there's offensive line too because they're in love with that whole premise. So Paris Johnson could be there. The kid Skoronski could be there. I think if Bijan Robinson starts to slip, they may want to work something from 30 to get down. Like if he slips in the 20s, which it probably won't happen. I think that's the only chance that they would be tempted to do that. But at 10, they're not going to take that.
From a larger perspective, Mike, the team in general, the roster building. I think we were all under the impression that things have to change, which they do when you have to pay the quarterback versus on a cost-effective rookie deal. But they did a really good job, at least for a window, of keeping the cap number as low as it evidently is going to be. So we can't keep talking about Nicholas Morrow being a starter on this team, a Reed Blankenship, a Terrell Edmonds. They got to get back to building this team if they're true Super Bowl contenders. Is that fair? Do we change our expectations for the rest of this roster?
No. I mean, are you suggesting that they haven't built it well enough?
I'm suggesting defensively, they got a lot of just the guys. They got a lot of Jags on the defensive side, and the defensive side lost them the Super Bowl, right? Everybody was upset. The second-ranked defense with 70 sacks wasn't good enough, and now all of a sudden it's, Reed Blankenship in for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It's Terrell Edmonds in for Marcus Epps. It's Nicholas Morrow in for T.J. Edwards. Nakobe Dean at least has some upside. So don't have a problem with that. Jordan Davis, don't have a problem with that. But, I mean, they've taken a significant step back defensively.
Yeah, they're taking a leap of faith, John. I think, the Edmonds thing maybe helps Blankenship a little bit. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was a big loss to me. The linebacker, they've got one guy that they think can do the job. We'll see what they do. They're going to have to get an edge rusher somewhere. I don't know. Do we have any faith in Barnett making a comeback at that situation? I
know Jody doesn't.
We're crossing our fingers a little bit, but I don't think like it's devastating that because they did get the two corners back, which to me is really important, and I think they think it's important. They have enough faith in Blankenship, and they pair him with a veteran. Linebacker who can cover is going to be like. The linebacker situation is not comfortable for me. And nor is counting on the Brandon Grahams and Fletcher Coxes to add to the rotation. But, we'll just have to wait and see on this.
All right. Mikey Miss, you got to be glad that you're doing a show with Mac and Mac today and not Seth Joyner. Because if you had said what you just said with Seth Joyner, he would have punched you in the face. Defense is fine. No, I'm okay with this defense.
I haven't seen his tweets. Is he not okay with the defense?
I have not seen. I assume he's not.
We had him on a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying they have not done their due diligence in keeping this defense, which, as John correctly pointed out, kind of fell apart in the second half of the Super Bowl. They haven't done quite enough to keep it to the level that it was at this past year.
He wasn't happy with the loss of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I know that. Nor was I. But and that situation turned quickly. So I think he pushed their envelope, and they said, you know what, we don't put up with this kind of stuff anymore, which is probably not the right thing.
Not a problem. They're going to get Buda Baker. John told me yesterday the Eagles.
No, I did not say that. I said
they just go get him.
Jody is going off the rails. I said I would get Buda Baker. I didn't say the Eagles were getting him. I would go after him. So I'll ask you, Mike. Mike,
they have any money left to get him?
Well, they do now. I thought they got more money than I thought.
That's right. Their cap situation is fine with Jay. They're paying Jalen 3 cents. On the cap next year, so. I guess they could get him.
Yeah, they certainly have the room. So would you make that? Say you got to give up the 30th pick, and you got to sign him to an extension. We all know they're going to backload it, but to me, this is a top 5 safety in football. So I would consider it.
If you want to go back to the Super Bowl, I guess you absolutely have to think that way.
Yeah.
You can't fall off. You got to get to the next level now.
Yeah,
and Buda Baker, even though he plays the game a little bit different, that's one of the things I'm really intrigued. There's so many things about when the season gets underway. Can't get here fast enough. We got to get the draft first, and then please start the season the week after. Doesn't quite work that way. Do you think there's going to be a shift in the defensive philosophy and the way they play things because they swapped out their defense corner? They're bringing in a quote-unquote Fangio guy, but the couple of moves that they made don't follow right in the footsteps of the kind of defense that Jonathan Gannon ran, specifically the Edmonds at safety one. Do you think we're going to see a little bit of a different defense this year, Mike?
I think that's a question that is a great question, and yet we haven't paid that much attention to it. The shift to a new defensive coordinator and what he might bring. He's a Fangio guy, which I don't know. It seems it would play into the same way they played last year. So, but you never know how guys are going to respond to a new guy. I mean, that's a big thing. With new coordinators, we thought about it first, and then we kind of got off it. But it's something we need to pay attention to, whether that's going to go smoothly or not. So I agree with you, Jody. I might. Who knows? Until I see it.
Right. Until we see, sure, we don't know. We can only guess.
Yeah, there's going to be some rocky moments probably early, and people are going to go all Gannon on him, and especially Seth. But it may level out. I don't know.
At Mike Miss 25, make sure you follow Mike on Twitter, MikeMiss.com, to see what he's up to. The Mike Missinelli podcast on Bet Rivers. Make sure you listen to that as well. Eagles post-game show here on JAKIB Media. Mike, I'll leave it. Everybody talks about the defense, right? There was this incredible sort of, you'd never seen the NFL the exact same coaching staff. The Eagles almost pulled it off. A couple low-level promotions, things like that. But everybody was back for the run last year. Now you have this tremendous upheaval, especially on the defensive side. But I thought Shane Steichen was a damn good play caller. And I think everybody is overlooking. Brian Johnson's a good coach, but we saw what the difference between Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen. Shane was better play caller than Nick. So it's going to be, there's always differences. And I think to assume there's not going to be any hiccups with the play calling, that might be a big assumption. Am I off base there?
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's what I kind of alluded to. That this transition is going to. I don't think it's going to be 100% smooth. It could be. I mean, that Chip Kelly came in that first game and wowed everybody, right? I don't know if that happens, and if it doesn't happen, this town is going to freak. Yeah. So I would expect there would be some growing pains early, and hopefully they don't lose the team through that. Like, if they get off rock, you're going to lose the fans. The fans are going to complain. But the team belief in the system is what I worry mostly about if they get off to a rocky start. Hopefully they don't. But you're right. The offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator are different. There's not going to be a lot of time to solidify what these guys like to do. So it may not go smooth at first. It depends on who you lose at that point.
All right, Mikey, I got one last one for you as well. Is there a possibility that in round 4, they don't have a 4th round pick, so Howie's going to have to acquire a pick, but either late day 2, early day 3, the Philadelphia Eagles draft Jair Brown of Penn State. I know people love Porter at the corner. I don't think they're getting him. I don't think they're picking him, but they could use a young up-and-coming safety. How big a Jair Brown fan are you, and what round?
I'm a major Jair Brown fan, and he's been really he's impressed a lot of people. Pro day, from what people tell me up there, he looked really good. I would not be disappointed with that selection at all. I wouldn't be disappointed they selected Joey and Jair. Jody, how about that?
Now he's showing those nitty colors.
I think they're really good players, both of them.
Is that a blue jacket? You guys, it's not Penn State blue that you're wearing, is it?
You and Mosher, it's always Penn State. It's all Penn State.
No, normally it's not for me, but I think Joey Porter is a hell of a player. I can see them trading down. They had him in. Trade down from 10. You acquire the picks that you're lacking in the middle, and you take him, and then Jair Brown's there for you. You can't go wrong. These are well-coached, good athletic players.
By the way, Mike, I got to give you credit. I was just looking at your Twitter page. You got that prediction. Sixers were horrendous in the first half and only down 5. Runaway win. Then you dropped the mic. Well done.
Yeah, I was out. Because you know what you get when you do something like that, John. People go, "Oh, here he is, Mikey Mush. He's going to jinx him again." So I put it out. I saw the landscape of what that game was going to be, and I'm out. I'm going to drop the mic.
And that's exactly what happened in the second half. Mikey Mish, you did not disappoint. I threw you a hanging curve with your Penn State loyalty, and you swung as hard as you possibly could. Both Porter and Jair Brown. Need them both in the Eagles secondary next year.
And I'll do the Lions growl.
Mike, that's Seth Joyner, the growling. And if he heard you say what you said about the defense, you could be in trouble. Mikey Mitz, always a pleasure, buddy. Appreciate you jumping in.
All right, guys.
We'll punch you up next month.
Thanks, Mike.
Right, take care.
Mike Missinelli, the well-dressed Mike Missinelli.
Yeah. Got dressed for. I'm going to still say, he got dressed for us.
Yeah. Okay. Feel free to go back and watch the Fox spot that he did either. But when he's out dressing the two schlubs who host the show, we appreciate
that's pretty easy to do. His
sartorial effort. John McMullen, Jody McDonald coming back with you here on Birds 365. Should be fun next hour because we're going to have Brad Spielberger from overthecap.com, PPF Pro Football Focus, but also does a lot of cap stuff. I know it's all just speculation. The details haven't come out. We'll see what Brad, how he analyzes the details that have been made official. It looks like an unbelievably good deal for the Eagles in the first 4 years. There's got to be a price to pay at some point, right? You can't, as good as Jake Rosenberg and Howie Roseman are, they can't just wave a magic wand and make money disappear. It has to be accountable
again, I think, if the player craps, that's always what it comes down to. If the player craps out, it's not going to work for you. I mean, evaluation in football is more important than anything else about the player. The player's got to continue to play at the level. If the player continues to play at this level that he had last year, I mean, this is going to be a glorious deal for the Eagles.
Yep.
He's going to see every cent of this deal and more because they're going to rework his deal if he continues to play at that level. So it's always about, getting the player right. And they didn't get it right with Carson Wentz. I think I liked what Mike said about it being a safe bet because I hope people realize I was playing devil's advocate with that 50 million, people, some guys kind of go off the rails. That's not going to be Jalen. He's very grounded. I don't have much concern about that at all. It's a safe bet. It's a safe bet, but it's always a bet.
Right, except for injury. I'm with you. Jalen all of a sudden going to wake up today, a rich young man, and his attitude's going to change. Oh, no. Speaking of bet, I'd bet good money. That's not happening. He will still be Jalen Hurts no matter how much money is in his bank account. But you just can't project injury. And the Eagles, with the way they've structured the deal, if Brad Spielberg comes on and tells us the same thing, are taking a potential risk of a major downside. If the football aspect of Jalen Hurts should go wrong. I don't think it's going wrong. I don't think we're getting Wentz 2.0, but if it does, that's why they're getting the years as cheap as they are at the front end of this deal. It's almost unfathomable how good this deal is for its first 4 years against the cap. Well, what's the downside risk? It's the last 2 years, but it'll all be decided on the field by what level Jalen plays to. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac, Birds 365. We're coming right back in just a sec.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say We got this. Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
You got McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Thank Mikey Mitz for jumping into the mix. And yeah, I asked Mikey to come on the show before we ever knew that Jalen Hurts would sign his contract extension. Timing kind of worked out. And I, after the news came out, I said, John, can you see if you can get Brad Spielberger on here, get our favorite cap guy on to discuss the cap ramifications? John was able to get Brad to commit and join us, and he should do just that in about 20 some odd minutes. All right, John, I do want to clarify one thing here, buddy, because you did call me on the carpet and say I went off the rails and misquoted you about Buda Baker, that you didn't say you thought the Eagles would do that. You said that you would do that. Am I misquoting you now? I do want to get you on the record straight. Is John not hearing me?
No, I got you.
Okay. Are you saying that you think the Eagles should be negotiating and or making a play for Buda Baker? Or did you say, and this is what I thought you said, you thought that there was a chance the Eagles would do that? Were you talking about what you would do or what the
I
Eagles
was talking about what I would do. I don't know what the Eagles think of the player. I said, if they think what I said about the Eagles, if they think the same way I think about the player, they will go after him. They will go after him. If they think he's a top 5 safety and he's available, he's got to be available too, because just because he wants out doesn't mean they're going to trade him. Then they will go after him. I've compared it to A.J. Brown. There are certain players they will erase their history with and say, well, this guy's just better than everybody else. I think he's one of those players at safety. I think. I don't know if they think that. By the way, speaking of Buda, he was out there congratulating Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he got a thumbs up in there.
Maybe, maybe he's doing a little lobbying.
Yeah,
he sees potential. Super Bowl. Look, I can't fathom them going into a season, as I said, with what they have at safety right now, what they have at linebacker right now. And I had no idea the cap numbers were going to be this low. So I was on the assumption yesterday when we were talking about it that the cap numbers would be sort of, 15, 16, and then 25 or something like that. And all of a sudden, I was talking under that impression that they should make a move, that they should go after. With this, I mean, If he's on the trading block, if he wants to come here, I think they're making a mistake if they miss about if they say this guy's not good enough and we can make do with Reed Blankenship and Terrell Edmonds or Justin Evans or even a draft pick. Yeah, I disagree with that. This is a 3-time All-Pro player, not Pro Bowl, All-Pro player. This is a really, really good player. But you bring up, and I talk about it all the time, and you're right. He's not a traditional coverage safety. He plays all over the place. He's a good coverage guy, though. He's not typically when you talk about box safeties, what people describe as box safeties, they don't cover very well.
Yeah, there's a reason they're in the box.
Yeah. He covers well. And his PFF numbers point that out. He's got really good coverage numbers. Like, he's a really good player. And other than Derwin James, because I think he's way more versatile than Minkah Fitzpatrick, who, Miami, for those who don't know, wanted to turn Minkah Fitzpatrick into Budda Baker, play all over the place. And he wanted no part of it. He didn't want to do it. That's one of the reasons he got traded. Great player, but, and that's what the Eagles want. Somebody who just wants to sit back there and play coverage. Boy, I have a problem if they wouldn't want that player. But I could see them not wanting that player.
You just said that's what the Eagles want. Here's where I'll give the Budda Baker fans a little bit of a leg up and maybe a little hope. When they signed Edmonds, and they got him for, what, $2 million, John? Just barely more than the league minimum. And he's a 4-year starter in Pittsburgh. Yeah, granted, his PFF ratings aren't great, but he was a starter on a pretty damn good defense 4 straight years. He was more of a box safety. He's more of a guy who's going to come up and help in the run game and make tackles and the like. He's not a great coverage safety. And during Jonathan Gannon's era, they wanted 2 cover safeties. They want both their safeties, the mirror players that can drop down and play somebody in the slot. That's what Jonathan Gannon wanted out of his safeties. And then they signed Edmonds. And I said, maybe Sean Desai is going to ask his safeties, game plan his safeties to be a little bit different, that it's not going to be the same exact defense we've seen Jonathan Gannon run the last 2 years. If I'm right about that assumption, and we won't know till they get out there on the field. Oh, by the way, the interview session that you had with Sean Desai. Oh, that's right. You haven't had that. How long ago did they hire him?
Yeah, it's been a while. Still nothing.
They haven't quite made him available to the media yet here in town. But so we're all guessing. We're all poking and hoping here. We don't know anything. We've got the quotes from Nick Sirianni that say, oh, I have my defensive philosophies, and Jonathan and I were always on the same page, and I have faith that Sean and I are going to be on the same page. So he's hinted at it, that it's going to be a very similar defense, but we won't know till it gets out there on the field and we get a look at it, or we have to try and read between the lines. And the Edmonds signing might be something you could read between the lines that, hey, maybe they will be playing their safeties differently, and maybe they will get involved and make an offer.
I disagree with you from this standpoint. As you mentioned a little bit there, we're not completely blind because Nick Sirianni's gone on record a couple times. It's not going to change much. We're going to play this style of defense. So that's what the head coach wants. That's what the head coach is going to get.
All right. Now, I just want to interrupt 1 second. I'll let you finish your thought, John. Then if we've got the right scouting report on Terrell Edmonds, why would they sign the guy?
Well, they signed him for, as you mentioned, 1 year, $2 million. They signed him for $600,000 guaranteed. I mean, this guy's just as likely to be Jaquiski Tart as a big time player on this defense. I think everybody looks at the safeties that they have, and it's like Terrell Edmonds looks like Ronnie Lott. Well, they paid him like Jaquiski Tarts. I mean, they gave him nothing. What I'm saying is, if you go trade for Budda Baker and you're giving up the 30th pick in the draft, and you're signing him to a contract of $15 million a year, well, you know that guy's a big part of your stinking defense. Contracts say a lot. You know, Jalen Hurts, highest paid, but contracts tell you a lot.
Sure.
They didn't pay this guy anything. He could be the starting safety. I said this about Tart last summer a bunch. He could be the starting safety. He could be off the team. He could be cut in a heartbeat if he doesn't show up and do what they expect or what they want him to do. So it's not like right now we look at the roster and say, well, he's got to play, right? You know, who else is going to play? Well, if somebody shows up in the draft, whether it's Brian Branch or even a second or a third round pick, or they trade for Budda Baker, all of a sudden, Terrell Edmunds is probably more likely to be cut than be on the team. So the contract tells you a lot, and the contract says, we don't have anything right now, so let's have this placeholder.
Right. And that the reason I stated the way I stated was, then don't you have isn't it obligatory that you have to at least investigate Budda Baker? When you've got a guy penciled in right now as your starting safety, who John McMullen says there's a better chance he's going to be cut than actually starting.
No,
don't you need to be looking to upgrade that position?
I didn't say better. I said there's a chance, but you know, right now, like,
do me a favor, break it down for me. 100%, 60, 40.
Well,
starting,
right now,
30.
Right now, 100% he'll be on the team. Right now, on April 18th, because they don't have anybody else.
Right
now, if they add Brian Branch, that number probably goes 60-40. If they add Budda Baker, it's probably under 50. It's probably underwater. So, you know, right now, he is Ronnie Lott. They got to play him. You know, that's why everyone makes a big deal about Terrell Edmunds. And by the way, I think he was a good player in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think he was underrated. I can't understand why somebody else didn't give him $5 million. I think, you know, he will start if they don't add anything at safety. But that contract tells you everything you need to know. And that's same thing with Nicholas Morrow, same thing with Justin Evans, even Rashad Penny, $600,000 guaranteed. I mean, if they get somebody in the draft that they like in camp, and it doesn't have to be even Bijan, it could be Roshan Johnson from Texas, and they say, wow, this kid can play, and they get him in the third round, or they get some, you know, day 3 picks, and how he works that out, they get him in the 4th round, what have you, they could cut him. No skin off their back at all.
Right. They've signed a bunch of lottery tickets, and guess what? The beauty of lottery tickets, if you don't win, you throw them away and you move on and you go buy next week's lottery tickets. But sometimes lottery tickets cash, but a lot of times they end up in the trash. And some of the guys Eagles have signed, that may be the case. We'll see how it plays out. I asked Mikey Miss this, and I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to give you my opinion. Has Jalen Hurts' contract changed and when I say changed, I mean significantly changed the way the Eagles are looking at this upcoming draft, because they got the deal done? Not only got it done, but got it done in the parameters they got it done in.
No, I don't think it's changed from the draft perspective, because they're pretty disciplined with the draft. They're not going to go reach for, you know, if they like a player, they're going to take him. Howie's learned that over the years the hard way. I think it changes the other aspects, you know, the post-June burst cuts. You know, if Budda Baker's made available, I think now you have to say, all right, we have this window. And that's what I asked Mike. You know, I thought it was going to be, you knew the window was going to be there for a year or two. Well, now they have a window for 3-4 years. And I keep looking at that defense, and I know offense is more important. Jeffrey Lurie said it. We can all agree. It's good offense beats good defense. I say it all the time now in the modern NFL. But you got to be representative. Remember, They weren't good enough last year, right? With 70 sacks, number 2 defense, number 1 passing defense. They weren't good enough on the biggest stage to get the stop when they needed to. I mean, first of all, I think people kind of forget it's kind of difficult to get to that position. And if you're rolling out that defense, luckily they don't have to play today. They're not getting to that position to crap the bed because that defense isn't going to be good enough. So that part to me, there's got to be more of a sense of urgency.
All right, here's the only effect that I think, excuse me, Jalen Hurts' contract has on the Eagles in the upcoming draft 9 days from now. Prior to Jalen's contract extension, I was probably at about a 10% chance that the Eagles were going to take Bijan Robinson at the number 10 pick. 10. That's not much. It's not 0, but it's not a great percentage either. 10. I'm up to about 20 now, John.
Ooh.
Because I think that when you make that kind of commitment like they did to Jalen Hurts, you got to kind of back it up, if not double down. And as you just said, and he's well on record saying it, Jeff Lurie believes offense rules the world. And that when the owner is on record as saying, yeah, the only way to win in the National Football League is outscore them. And yeah, the Chiefs outscored us with a late field goal that maybe there wasn't holding on the play on James Bradbury, but they were there. They were knocking on the door. They were this close to winning the Super Bowl. Well, maybe we need even more offense. Maybe if we had put up more points, that we could have actually held on and won the Super Bowl. If Jeff Lurie and the owner has a little influence on that number 10 draft pick, maybe it is Bijan Robinson. I've been saying all along, highly unlikely. I'm saying more likely now. Not a given, but more likely because they've committed so much to the offense, doubling down and giving Jalen Hurts, protecting Jalen Hurts by getting him a better back might be something they think about.
Yeah, I'm all on board with my counterintuitive notion that he makes the running backs better, not vice versa. And I don't think you need to spend that capital, especially with Jalen Hurts playing quarterback. If you want to go the offensive route, then I would go more towards offensive line. And obviously that would be more important for the quarterback to protect the quarterback and all that kind of stuff. So then you start talking about, well, is Paris Johnson going to fall? Probably not. But, you start doing the math, Jody. 4 quarterbacks go. I'm starting to think maybe Will Levis doesn't, but let's pretend he does. 4 quarterbacks go. Carter's not there. Anderson's not there. Texas Tech kid. I always forget his name. Wilson's not there. That's 7. You have Skoronski, you have Paris Johnson. That gets you to 9. Am I missing somebody? Bijan, he's probably not going to be top 10. Who am I missing? Corner, Christian Gonzalez. All of a sudden, you get that one guy in that top 10. You got 4 quarterbacks, Gonzalez, the 3 linemen. You get one of the offensive linemen at 10. I think that would be more likely for the Eagles.
Understood. But again, following in the Eagles' history, and the most specific history since their miracle working offensive line coach, Lane Johnson was a first-round pick. But Kelsey was what, 6th?
6th.
Mailata was 7th. Sayamalu was 3rd or 4th? 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
All right. So they've gotten their offensive lineman. Lane was Lane. Was Lane picked before Stoutland University was opened?
He was Chip Kelly. So Stout came with Kelly. So no, he was first year.
Okay. Right. So the Eagles.
By the way, and by the way, remember that was the Deion Jordan year. So the Eagles lucked out. I think it was Miami that traded above the Eagles because everybody knew Chip was going to take Dion Jordan from Oregon. So thank Miami for that one.
Thank you very much, Dolphins. And Dickerson was second round pick. So they've been able to do their offensive line, is phenomenal offensive line, best offensive line in football, without investing first round draft picks. Lane was the only one out of the 5. So I don't know that they're going to use the 10th pick in the draft. Last time they did was Lane Johnson. They did well. So you can say if they get Lane again, they double down on that immediately, Jody.
I do think, my lot is unique. I mean, that's a first round talent. We all know why from a physical perspective. And Jeff deserves all the credit in the world for building him up from nothing. But that's a first round. Like if grew up in America and was 6'8" and that size and that strong with that athleticism, and he played high school football and college football, he would have been a first round pick. But obviously it was what it was. So I kind of put him off to the side. Dickerson would have been a first round pick if he didn't tear his ACL. That's a first round talent. And by the way, he tore his ACL I think it was the SEC championship game. So he tore his ACL late coming into the draft, and they still picked him very early in the second round. They had an early pick that year. That's a first round talent. There's this now Kelsey, obviously, and that's Howard Mudd too, by the way. Unbelievable player, 6th round pick. That never happens. Good on them. Certainly Jeff has a big thing, and he does more with players like Halapuli Bati and Matt Pryor and Nate Herbig than probably anybody else. But those guys aren't Lane Johnson. Those guys aren't Jordan Mailata. Those guys aren't Lane Dickerson. He gets tremendous value out of them. But I think this narrative that, you can take a so-and-so in the 6th, 7th round and he'll develop that's even Isaac as a 3rd round pick turned into a really good player, but it took a while. He got benched for Stefan Wisniewski. He struggled. He was depressed at one point. He was, upset. And all of a sudden he turns the corner. It helps if you get a talent like Paris Johnson with Jeff Stoutland, then I feel really good.
I think there's more evidence that a highly drafted running back has got a chance to reach the top of the mountain than a highly drafted offensive line. There are more offensive linemen that are day 2 and day 3 picks rather than first round pick. Last year, the 4 best running backs in the NFL were all first round picks. So the narrative, I think, is more off base. You can take a running back at any round in the draft than it is you can take an offensive lineman in any round in the draft. I actually think it is easier to take a lineman and develop them than it is a running back. If you got the talent, you got the talent. That's why you go in the first round. The Isaiah Pacheco's of the world are few and far between. They're most recent in our memory because they just kind of did it to the Eagles in the Super Bowl this year. But that 7th round superstar running back is...
I don't know. Look at that Donnell Pumphrey draft, man. That draft was really deep at running back. Really, really deep. And the Eagles just made the wrong pick, man. They made the wrong pick.
Subscribing to the theory that you can find a star running back late in the draft, and they got themselves Donnell Pumphrey. So that kind of makes my point for me. All right, Jody Mac, here with you on Birds 365. We are banking on Brad Spielberger from both Pro Football Focus and OverTheCap.com, jumping on with us to discuss the Jalen Hurts contract. Spielberger next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
With John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac Birds 365. All right, a little context here. Over the weekend, I follow Brad Spielberger on Twitter, and I see his latest mock draft, and I go, oh, shoot, we got to get Brad on. I want to talk to him about his mock draft. And then the Jalen Hurts signing happened, so I go, John, you got to reach out to Brad. See if you get him on the show tomorrow. We definitely need to talk to Brad Spielberger tomorrow. And then he shows up in a burnt orange T-shirt. Are you trying to tell us something?
Texas,
Your mock
baby.
had you going for the Redskins. Are we going to get Bijan Robinson here in Philadelphia? What are you up to, Spielberger?
It's a Bear shirt, so I don't know if that's any indication of anything. But
yeah, we go Bear. By the way,
I don't know about Bijan. I don't know about Bijan, but I mean, hey, it's they're sitting there at 10, and all the trench players that they like are off the board at that point. Maybe they do it, but I personally don't see it.
By the way, how does a Bears guy intern with the Vikings? How'd you get through that?
Yeah, I think the short answer is in the NFL, you take any job you can get. I don't think you can be too picky.
Good point. All right. Well, we're going to get out of the way, Brad. How can the largest contract in NFL history by some metrics be team friendly, but the Eagles pulled it off, man? I'm amazed at the cap numbers out there. Now, we don't have official numbers, but if you look at Schefter's numbers for the first 4 years of this cap, how did they do it? How did they structure this deal?
Yeah, I think he very kindly, as a favor to whoever gave this information, intentionally cut it off after 2026 because in 2027 and 2028, we're looking at $75-80 million cap hits, right? So that's how. So my guess is we know the signing bonus about $24 million. There's probably an option bonus for about $40 million in the second year, another option bonus for about $40 million in the third year, and a third option bonus for about $50 million in the fourth year of this contract. So basically what it is here's the simplest way to look at it. They've essentially gone ahead and restructured the contract ahead of time, right? So instead of having the big salary, getting to that year and restructuring the deal, again, I probably explained this in the show before, but restructuring is converting salary into a bonus and pushing those cap hits out. The Eagles basically said, we'll just do that right out of the gate and get it ahead. So there's probably void years attached to this contract as well. You can push cap hits into those void years, especially those later option bonuses. That's relevant. But yes, he's not a magician. There are going to be gigantic cap hits in 2027, 2028.
Now, when you say option bonuses, is it truly an option or is it guaranteed? He's guaranteed almost $180 million. Are those option bonuses locked in and guaranteed? And if so, why the use of the word option?
Yeah, that's a good question. So these ones, I would say, look, the 2024 and 2025 are fully guaranteed at signing, no doubt. I'm guessing the 2026 one is probably, injury guaranteed only at signing, maybe becomes fully guaranteed at a later date. So yeah, it's a good question. They are technically options, but what happens is usually the language is if the team does not exercise the option, the player still gets all that money in salary fully guaranteed. So it's a funny way to essentially just prorate more money. But yeah, and there is truly an option tied to it. But really what it is technically Hurts would have all that money in salary. And then if the team exercises the option, everything above the minimum salary turns into a bonus and gets prorated over the life of the deal. So, for these ones, like you said, is it really an option and is it really not going to get paid? No. But, for the last one, in the contract, it's possible they do decline that option and maybe the full guarantees don't kick in and they can get out of that final one. But even that one, I think, might become fully guaranteed by, let's say 2025. Maybe even 2024. And so in reality, it's also probably fully guaranteed as well.
Brad, one mechanics thing first, and then I want to talk about the cap numbers again. But you mentioned the voidable years. I saw one cap expert sort of put 2 voidable years. I meant to ask you in the past, but and even I don't know. I try to do the best I can with this stuff, but there's got to be a limit to void years. And how do they figure that out? Is it involved with the length of the contract? In other words, how many void years can teams put on these deals? And then from the perspective, I look at the cap numbers and I say, well, they can build this team for 4 years before they have to do something, restructure, whatever. And you mentioned that term. I heard that term before. They essentially did the restructure early. Have you ever seen a team do this before? Get ahead of the curve?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just get ahead of the curve and sort of turn it on its head.
Yeah. So to the first point with the void years, there's probably not an actual limit, but you can only prorate money up to 5 years. So there's no need for more than, let's say, 4 void years, because that final real year of the contract, you could then push money over that final real year and 4 additional void years. There's no real usage to have more than 4 because they wouldn't serve any purpose. So that's the answer to that question. And yes, there are teams that do this. So the Cleveland Browns, shockingly, with Andrew Berry, also do this as well. Myles Garrett had a double option bonus structure in his contract, and essentially the Browns got out ahead of it and, quote unquote, like I said, they basically restructured ahead of time. I'm sure he borrowed that from his time learning under Howie Roseman. The Bills did it with Josh Allen's contract. So you see it here and there, but the Eagles are definitely the team that does it the most. They have more prorated money than any other team. I know people talk about the Saints a lot. The Saints don't do this. What they do instead is they wait. They have all the money in salary or roster bonuses that are all in that particular year, and then they just restructure when they get there, as opposed to doing it ahead of time.
And the Eagles have made it work for them before. We'll see if this one does. But there is a potential downside if we get to the $80-some-odd million potential dead cap hit. Yeah, that's never been done before in the National Football League. I can guarantee you that. All right. With the fact that they've made their commitment to Jalen and we know what direction they're going in, certainly a quarterback, and keeping it as cap friendly as they have, You think the Eagles are going to do anything between now and the beginning of the season? Will they be aggressive? Players either traded, trying to talk their way off teams, June 1st cuts, and the like. Do you think the Eagles, because of the deal they've done, have now opened the door to upgrade this roster elsewhere?
The cap does matter, but more importantly is the cash. And that is where, in my opinion, the team-friendly structure comes in. Again, yes, the cap is helpful. Technically, Hurts didn't have to agree to that, but I don't see why a player would care. What Hurts did as something of a favor is he's going to earn $60 million in new money through 2024. So the next 2 seasons, he'll have $60 million on top of what he was already owed. That is 6th among quarterbacks, right? So it's actually less than what Dak Prescott earned through the first new year of his contract in Dallas. He had a $66 million signing bonus alone, the biggest in NFL history. So that is what a guy like Patrick Mahomes earned a very little cash through the first couple of years. And that enabled the Chiefs to, extend Chris Jones and extend Travis Kelce and add some talent. So I think the Eagles will be in the market for cap casualties, just like a James Bradbury last year. If the right player comes along at a position of need, gets cut, a good player that they're a fan of, I think they will look to sign and add, more talent to this roster.
We always use that term in football, team friendly. So you're the cap expert. I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you describe this as team friendly as a whole, this deal?
So I would say the early year cash flow staying low is team friendly. It is. It enables them to spend more cash. He could have pushed for, like I said, he could have pushed for more early cash up front, because technically at the end of the day, right, like there is a time value for these players of the money, right? I mean, getting the money as fast as possible, putting it, in investment accounts and letting it grow is beneficial to the players. So that aspect is team friendly. Overall, I think it also is a strong deal for Jalen Hurts, right? He gets about 68% of this deal in new total guarantees. I wrote an article about my projection for Jalen Hurts where I mentioned Carson Wentz got about 62% of the deal in new total guaranteed money. So Hurts surpassed that by a good amount. He obviously does get, the most average per year with $51 million ever. And he didn't have to go to, 6 years like Josh Allen or 10 years like Patrick Mahomes. I think he could have pushed for 4, which would have been even more player friendly. But I do think only going to 5 years, without a 5th-year option because he's not a first-round pick, was friendly for him as well. I think it's a win-win for both parties.
All right. One last cap question for me, and then I got to ask you about your mock draft because you got a couple guys there that go, wait a minute, he's got him dropping down. We'll get to that. The Eagles do business down the road, I think, more than any other team in the National Football League. They're number 2 right now in dead cap money in the NFL because they do these deals with the voidable years. And at some point, you got to pay the piper. And we hope it doesn't come up with Jalen Hurts that an injury causes his career to get sidetracked because – man, the price they'll have to pay when they get to the last 2 years of this deal is off the charts. Are they smarter than everybody else? Are they doing this right, rolling the dice, facing a doomsday potential scenario, but in the meantime, benefiting greatly from it? Is the rest of the league catching up to the Eagles? Are you seeing more of the contracts? You mentioned the Browns with their former executive running the show there. Are more teams going to play the push the salary cap down the road game like the Eagles have done the last several years?
So here's one reason why it's smart is that $1 million under this year's salary cap, $225 million, is worth less than or more than in a couple of years from now when the salary cap is $250 million. $1 million in cap dollars, not cash, obviously is a different number. So that is where it comes in that I think Philadelphia realizes we can this future dead money, we're basically getting a discount rate on it, right? Like it's these cap dollars cost less to us and hurt us less down the road than they would right now. So that is smart. The other aspect, though, frankly, and again, you can't hold this against them, but you need an owner that is willing to spend more cash than the salary cap in each year. Jeffrey Lurie will let them spend as much as they want to. Their budget is borderline unlimited, and not every team has that benefit. So you have to also give him credit as well.
Speaking of other budgets, and you're right about Jeffrey Lurie. I always think it's understated when you have an owner who lets you go that extra mile. It's very, very important. The next guys we all expect, well, put Lamar off to the side. We'll talk about him as well. But Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I mean, this is the floor for them, especially Burrow. And those are two teams that have some issues when it comes to, liquidity and escrow. How much more difficult does this make it for the Bengals to get Joe Burrow done and the Chargers to get Justin Herbert done?
No, it's a great question. So the big thing I thought this offseason was more about term and bringing the contracts back to shorter, because for quarterbacks, you want a shorter deal. Like everyone, I think, thinks, oh, you get longer. If the money's not guaranteed, players have no interest in adding more years and giving teams more control. So I think what will happen there is if the Bengals and or Chargers are not willing to concede on guarantees and earlier cash flows and things like that, these players are going to say, okay, then I'm signing a 3-year or 4-year extension. Those guys, of course, because of the 5th-year option, have 2 years remaining, unlike Hurts, who had 1 year remaining. But yeah, I won't say it makes it much harder. I think the Hurts deal kind of falls where we expected. But yeah, I mean, those guys are going to ask for $52, $53+ million per year. And in those cases, because their ownership groups are not willing to guarantee future money like Philadelphia, I think we will see, maybe the record signing bonus I mentioned, Dak Prescott getting $66 million in a signing bonus. I think Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert might both beat that number because that's the trade-off. Okay, you won't guarantee me more money down the road, then you have to give me way more cash now to protect me and to help me gain money on that money. And that's kind of the back and forth concession. It's not going to be easy to get done. There's no question about that.
Quick follow-up. Sorry, Jody, before you jump in. The Eagles have kind of always believed it's better to be first. Can you ever think of an example where it's not better to be first, and why can't other teams figure that out? It seems to always be better to go first in the long term.
Almost always. And they are the best in the NFL at it. There's no question about it. They do it with, Jordan Mailata and Josh Sweat. We could sit here for an entire episode and talk about how good they are being first to market. I think the one argument, as more and more time goes on now, I can't tell you the name of the club, but I had a conversation with one team that said, in a given offseason, when they're going into the offseason, if there are a couple players at that guy's position that they know all are going to sign an extension in that offseason, they used to be first to market, and they did it a couple times. And what happened was the deals they got were so good, and then a bunch of guys passed them in that offseason, and then a bunch of guys, of course, in the future would pass them. And those players were coming back to them earlier and saying, I want a new deal. Yeah. I'm underpaid now.
I'm gonna blink if it's Danielle Hunter and the Vikings.
No comment. So then,
I thought it might be Buda Baker and the Arizona Cardinals, who we're going to ask you about in just a second.
So, Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs signed the same offseason to remarkably good deals. Yeah. And again, this, I'm actually not talking about them in this specific example, but for example, the right tackle Brian O'Neill signed 2 off seasons ago in 2021. Yeah. And there was Taylor Moton, there was Ryan Ramczyk, there was Braden Smith, and like all these right tackles got extended. The Vikings went last. And they gave Brian O'Neill, besides Ryan Ramczyk, they gave him the second best contract. But I think in their minds, they say, okay, you know what? Now if you try to come back to us and say, oh, I want more money, I want a better deal, say, we paid you more than everyone else in your draft class. We gave you the best contract of your offseason. We're not going to go back to the table with you right away. We were patient. We let you, so I think that is kind of an angle. Xavier Howard in Miami is another good one. Miami, the deal there was so good for Miami. He got new money with 4 years left, first player in NFL history. So.
All right, Brad, we appreciate you helping us understand the cap permutations, and we got to wait till it's all official, but you and your buddies over at Over the Cap did a great job over the last 24 hours. All right, I got to get to your mock draft. Hey, let me cut to the chase. C.J. Stroud, number 11. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. It very much looks like Bryce Young is going to end up as a Carolina Panther because it's their pick. They got to make the decision. If Frank Reich likes Bryce Young better than C.J. Stroud, more power to him. We'll see how good Bryce Young is. I think he's going to be very good. I just think Stroud's going to be better. All those teams between 1 and 11 that need a quarterback, none of them are going to take C.J. Stroud. Anthony Richardson's going to go before C.J. Stroud. What don't you like about C.J. Stroud?
It's not a personal opinion at all. I think he might, have an argument as the best quarterback in the class. I'm a Bryce Young guy, but I would have CJ Stroud second. He was the second most accurate per our charting quarterback in all of college football last season. Obviously has the size. He does struggle pretty mightily against pressure, which is a problem, which does tend to translate to the NFL level. The weirdest thing about his eval, though, is his best game ever playing outside of structure and when plays broke down was against Georgia in the college football playoff.
Yep.
So that you never want to have one game impact your eval, but I mean that's basically an NFL defense he played against at Georgia and was phenomenal. So this is not my opinion. There are a lot of rumblings that he could take a bit of a tumble if he does not go 2 to Houston and or 4 to Indianapolis. Here's the thing, Las Vegas, of course, needs a quarterback. Maybe they get into the conversation. And I'll tell you this, I actually more so regret if he's there at 10. Philadelphia is going to shop that pick to, you guys know this. They'll call Tennessee. They'll call, Washington, Tampa Bay, Minnesota. Like they'll call every team and say, hey, if you want CJ Stroud, if you don't trade with us, someone else is going to. But yeah, I would not be surprised if he falls out of the top 5.
All right. Full disclosure, Brad, I have not been kind to your Chicago Bears this offseason. But they're right in front of the Eagles. So I want to get some intel. If the Eagles are forced to stay at 10, I think it's pretty clear the Eagles are the floor for Jalen Carter. Would he ever get by the Bears if he falls to that point? No.
If Jalen Carter's on the board at 9, he will be a Chicago Bear.
All right. All right, that's bad news for the Eagles. So they're going to have to go up and get it.
Eagles.
Now, I'll throw the Bears because you want to defend it. Look, I do not. To me, it's easy to tear things down. They've done a great job. They had tremendous assets. They got some good players. I think they did a disservice to Justin Fields last year. I don't think they built the offense around him. Tremendous, obviously, athletic skills. He made plays out of nothing. And man, how do you, as a cap guy, how do you get that much money to all ball linebackers? I think they're going to be very happy with TJ Edwards. Here's my prediction to you, Brad. They're going to cut Terrell Edmonds after 2 years because the expectations are going to be so out of whack for him. He's never going to live up to it. They think they're getting Derek Brooks, good player. 3rd year is going to get cut. That's my belief on the Bears.
Yeah, look, I mean, I won't argue. I think it's a possible outcome. I'll tell you this, and this is not me defending the Bears or navy and orange glasses, all those things. This was conversations I had going into free agency. You guys know I do all this work. I had no clue he was even on the Bears' radar. But I mean, the guy's going to be 24 in week 1. He is still that young.
Oh, yeah.
He was the second youngest player in his entire draft class. He is a physical specimen. At about 6'5", 250, but can run fast, can run laterally, all these things. People in Buffalo told me this year he started to figure it out. The game slowed down for him. The reason why he struggled in the early years, which they obviously agree with, they didn't extend him, but that for us, he was one of the highest graded coverage players in our entire system last year, was because they think he finally realized what was going on around him. He wore the green dot. He got everyone in position, and he knew what he was doing. So I hear you. Again, I'm not going to argue with you. It's a possible outcome. It's a possible outcome for every big free agent signing. But yeah, I think they're selling themselves on this guy is now coming into his own, and that's their belief.
I do think he fits Matt Eberflus's scheme.
Absolutely.
Certainly better than Roquan. But I like Roquan.
He's taller. He can run the alley. He's going to be that classic, cover 2 linebacker that covers over the middle. I'm not going to comp him to Brian Urlacher, but from a role standpoint, that's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah.
All right. If the Bears are at 9, right in front of the Eagles at 10, and we're assuming that Jalen Carter isn't available for either the Bears or the Eagles, and he goes in the top 8. Are they going offensive line? Are they the team that's going to take Bijan Robinson? That's all we talk about here in Philadelphia. Bijan at 10, Bijan at 10, Bijan at 10. Is there a chance Bijan goes at 9 to the Bears and the Eagles don't have a shot at him either?
So first, I'll say I don't think Carter is going to be there for either team. I think he'll be gone before both of them pick. No, I don't think the Bears will take Bijan. I don't think the Eagles will either. But yeah, if the Eagles want him at 10, I think he will be there. Maybe Atlanta at 8 is obviously now becoming a popular mock spot. But no, I think the Bears will either go tackle or they will look to trade down. I frankly think their ideal outcome. You of course can't force someone to trade up with you, but I think their ideal outcome is another trade down and then take a tackle in the teens.
There's 4 potential quarterbacks that might go in the top 9. How important is it from a cap standpoint to obviously get the 5th-year option on a quarterback? And how much do you think that pushes guys up the board? I mean, obviously you start talking about the higher you go, that the larger that 5th-year option is, but it's still a lot more cost effective than the second contract, as we're learning here in Philadelphia. So to get that guy, how much do you think it sort of out of whacks the evaluation process, in that I don't think anybody thinks Bryce Young is the best football player in this draft, but he's probably going number 1 overall. Where the best players, whether it's Jalen Carter, he's got some issues, even Bijan Robinson at a devalued position. Do you think the NFL's gone too far, is what I'm trying to say, Brad, and saying, all right, this is obviously the most important position, but we're overlooking good football players to take chances?
I'm not sure they're going far enough, frankly. Look, I totally get it. I mean, I don't want to be a total positional value truther in every sense of the word, but if you don't have a good quarterback, nothing matters. Like, it doesn't matter.
That's
like,
true. Fair.
And I don't even think I'm being hyperbolic in saying that. Like, you get the best roster on the planet and a replacement level quarterback, and yeah, you're going to win 10 games. You're going to be in purgatory. You'll maybe win a playoff game. Like, it just does not matter. So, look, should you take a guy every single year? Should you, be trading up and taking no? But realistically, I get it with quarterback. I think besides that, I think you can say maybe we're overvaluing a little bit other spots. But as for the 5th-year option point, I do think that is. And it might change now because that option is now fully guaranteed the day you exercise it. I think there's less value in that than we historically have thought, for 2 reasons. So A, the fact it's fully guaranteed. B, if the guy is good enough after the first 3 seasons, you're probably going to extend him anyway, right? Like the 5th-year option might not even matter. Now, again, it still gives you another year of control. You can still negotiate off of it. Like I mentioned for Burrow and Herbert, if those guys sign 5-year extensions, you have 7 years of control, versus 6 for Hurts. So it does help. It does matter. But look at this past season. The Giants declined Daniel Jones' option. Doesn't really matter. The Atlanta Falcons declined Caleb McGarry, the tackle. Does not matter. The Raiders declined Josh Jacobs, the running back. His franchise tag was $1.5 million more than what his 5th-year option would have been. Who cares, right? So I do think, to a degree, it should not dictate your decisions besides quarterback. The only reason I think it makes sense is, you're sitting there at 35 or the Indianapolis Colts and say you don't take a quarterback. I think they will. You don't take a quarterback and you call the Eagles at 30 and say, hey, we want to come up and get a quarterback, at 30 to get that 5th-year option. That, to me, is the most important area. It's Lamar Jackson. That he was the same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, that's the one area where I think it makes all the sense in the world. Otherwise, I do think it is a bit overblown.
Speaking of Lamar Jackson, what's going to happen there, Mr. Over the Cap? It comes down to a negotiation and guaranteed money and everything else. Is there a compromise position between he and the Ravens? And can they get it done before the draft? Because if not, do the Ravens address the quarterback position in the draft?
I mean, maybe after yesterday's news, Lamar sees another contract come in with fairly standard guarantee structures and is willing to come back to the table. Like, if Lamar is not willing to sign a contract unless it has the fully guaranteed money Deshaun Watson has, I don't think he's signing a contract. I think he will play on the franchise tag and then try to do it again, and maybe someone else will pay him. And ignoring the fact that he's missed some time and had some injury issues, all those things. I just don't see a scenario where the compromise is the Ravens giving him the fully guaranteed money he's looking for. Will they meet in the middle? Maybe. But like, it sounds like he wouldn't even take that. So yeah, yesterday's contract, I think, from a value standpoint, was good news for Lamar Jackson. From a guarantee and structure standpoint, it's just another notch against what he's trying to get.
Let me give you the compromise position. I put this out on CBS over the weekend. He comes in, signs the tender, agrees to play, but the Ravens promise to not tender him the year after. Is that something that could work for both? Who says no in that scenario?
Yeah, so you can add that language to a franchise tag so that, because people know this, that's actually a negotiable 1-year contract. He could also ask for more money, and he could ask for a no tag clause, which Jadeveon Clowney did. So, I mean, the thing is, though, like, if you're the Ravens, why would you do that, right? Because then you could just tag him for a year and then lose him. You have no leverage to keep him. So, I mean, it'd be great for Lamar Jackson. I just see no benefit. What do the Ravens get out of that?
The benefit is that who's their backup quarterback again? I don't even remember.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley. I mean, I hear you.
Tyler Huntley's starting 17 games
Rock
next
solid,
year.
baby.
You ready to go there? If you're the Ravens, that's the upside. You got Lamar Jackson actually
Well, he's
playing
going to
quarterback.
play. He's not going to leave all that.
I'd be surprised if he does, sit out, right? I think he will. I think he'll wait until the day before week 1 to sign the franchise tag. He might not do a single offseason activity, but I would be somewhat surprised if he misses time this upcoming year.
Yeah.
Lamar's a different bird.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a different animal.
I'm going to put you on the spot for the last one at PFF_Brad. Make sure you read Brad at Pro Football Focus, contributor over the cap, does a tremendous job, as you've seen here today. Best contract in free agency, worst contract in free agency.
Yeah, I'll go with Orlando Brown with the Bengals as the best one. Effectively a 3-year, $50 million deal. 4 years, 64 is the full term. Look, is he an elite tackle, one of the best in the NFL? No, but we see Laramie Tunsil signed for 3 years, $75 million, like a week later. Is he $10 million worse than the best? No, like it's a great contract for them. He totally overplayed his hand in Kansas City and signs a very team-friendly contract as a result. The worst, I'll go with Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't know what the Raiders are doing. I think the Houston Texans were the only other team in that market. My understanding is their offer was not quite where he got from the Raiders, but anyway, basically 2 years guaranteed. I think he's a worse quarterback than Derek Carr. I just don't get what they're doing. If they get a quarterback in the draft, I think it's more palatable as a bridge. But if they don't, they're just stuck in purgatory, and I just don't get it.
Eagle fans, despite the fact that he wore a Bears T-shirt here with us on Birds 365, I thought it was burnt orange for Bijan Robinson, so that tells you what I know. We love having Brad Spielberger on because he brings knowledge to the table that John and I just don't have. Brad, thank you very much for doing it. We're going to have you back on again. Appreciate you jumping in with us today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brad.
Brad Spielberger, follow on both Pro Football Focus and
I nailed when he was trying to wink. I knew it was Danielle Hunter, and I forgot about Stephon Diggs.
That was a good one by you, Johnny Mac. All right, and as soon as you said it, I go, oh, he's going back to his Viking roots. That makes sense. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Welcome back, guys. Back to round out a kind of important Birds 365 since Jalen Hurts' contract got done yesterday. We thank Mikey Miss for hopping on early and Brad Spielberger for hopping on late to talk about what kind of effect it has on the Eagles. We ran out of time with Brad. We could have kept him on another 20 minutes if we weren't running out of time for the show. I didn't even give him a hard time for his mock draft from an Eagle perspective. I busted his chops more about C.J. Stroud falling to number 11. And that's just him projecting what he's hearing. He said, not these are my ranking. This is what I'm hearing teams are going to do, which I guess is what you should do with a mock draft. He had the Eagles at number 10 getting Lucas Van Ness. And then at number 30, again, he's not moving teams around with deals and the like. He had them taking the Adi kid from Northwestern. So he's got him going
they like
edge.
him, by the way. I'm
that?
starting to get up the Adi. The Eagles, I'm starting to get a lot of the Eagles really like him. Adi.
Okay. And I would understand that at number 30. It's a pick that could make sense. Not if you get an edge guy with the first pick at number 10. They're not going edge, are they?
Well, he's more of an interior guy, Adi. He's more of a 3 technique guy, which I don't know necessarily the bits, but now it would be strange though either way to go edge and then get to go 2 defensive linemen would be a little bit strange. I think that's a little bit too high for Lucas Van Ness. I think the Eagles like him. I think he'd be more likely a candidate to trade down. There is a lot of smoke that Houston isn't taking a quarterback, which I don't understand, but they're a bad organization, so you never know. And they could be enamored with Will Anderson, so I could see that part. But yeah, I agree. I don't see 2 defensive linemen. I definitely see 1. Even if they stay there, I think it's far more likely that there's a trade up, trade down. As he mentioned, though, I don't think Jalen Carter is getting to the Eagles. So if they want him, they're going to have to go up. And also a little bit of news from Mike Garafolo. Paris Johnson is going to be in town today visiting with the Eagles.
One of the last couple.
Tomorrow's the deadline. Tomorrow's the deadline. No more pre-draft visits, top 30 visits.
All right, so then I'm going to put you on the spot right here, right now, McMullen, and I want you to give me both evaluations. The John McMullen evaluation and the here's what John McMullen thinks the Eagles think evaluation. Paris Johnson or Skoronski?
Oh, Paris Johnson. If
Which
they're both
one,
there,
McMullen or Eagles?
Both.
You think the Eagles would rank Johnson over Skoronski, and you would rank Johnson over Skoronski?
Yeah. I don't even think it's that close, to be honest. I don't think the Eagles would take Skoronski at 10. I think that would be a trade
If they
down
take
to.
Paris Johnson at 10, do they have him playing guard next year?
Yes. He's got that versatility. Yeah. I think Cam would be back to, hey, we love you, but Take another year.
Feel free to sit next to Kelsey.
Learn from the
soak up everything you
learn
can
from the GOAT. By the way, I meant to mention this, but obviously it's a big day, so I just want to leave you with this note. 26 teams started off-season work yesterday in the NFL. 5 others got a week head start because they had new head coaches. Only one team starting April 24th. The Eagles kicked it back a week. Only team in the NFL that hasn't started their offseason work.
That should not surprise anybody because that has been the modus operandi for the last 2 years. And hey, the results were what they were last year. Super Bowl appearance, 3 points short, pretty damn good. Less is more when it comes to working out and practicing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Less is never more for the Philadelphia Eagles talk here on Birds 365. We do it every single day. We thank everybody who streamed in today. Hit the like button on the way out the door. We still got 400 and change you guys here. Do us a solid. Hit the like button. Johnny Mac, come back tomorrow. Are you?
Yeah, let's do it. I don't think we're going to have quite as big a news, but maybe we'll talk about Paris Johnson tomorrow. Visiting.
Paris Johnson. Is that where the Eagles parachute? Get it? That's a joke. To Paris Johnson as their first round draft pick. We'll talk about it tomorrow. John McMullen and Jody McDonald right here tomorrow on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.